So welcome, folks. I hope you can hear me. Um, yeah, great to see the names. I'm sick and I have a pimple on my nose. Nevertheless, tonight we begin Wednesdays. So perfect. Very sweet with these names. Okay. Um, so welcome. So we'll just jump right in with a few comments, and then we'll sit and yeah. So I was reading an evolutionary anthropologist. I'm reading about the sort of origins of war, of cooperation, the possibility of peace. And the article doesn't exactly say that there are like good forces in us, cooperation, and then bad forces, violence. It's not exactly like there are sort of like the two wolves inside of us, love and hate. It's more like one wolf, and it can become war or peace. And so the the author Glowacki, I think the name is, says the traits and the technologies that allow people to mobilize, achieve collective action, cooperate across groups, and sanction spoilers to enable peace are the same traits that are used to wage war. The better our species became at creating peace, the better we also became at waging war. Goes on to say, while intergroup coalitionary aggression and intergroup cooperation may be evolved traits, peace is an invention. Yeah. So the kind of same tremendous human intelligence and effort and ingenuity, all of that can be leveraged for love or hate, for war or peace. And of course, I'm reading this because I'm concerned, you know, and what will become of us as a society, species, what will become of me, of each of us. Peace is an invention, the kind of, there's cooperation and there's war, violence, but peace, that is an invention. And so can we invent it? Can we invent it? Ajahn Chah said that we find our freedom in the same place we find our suffering. So beautiful. We find our freedom in the same place we find our suffering. So it's all right here. And it's, let's sit, sit. So finding a posture that feels sustainable. So what's already here? We go looking, but the grace is in being found. Some alienation when we go looking, try to make something happen, make something of ourselves. Grace is in being found. Let your self be found. Don't go looking for the breath. Let the breath find you. Let the breath suffuse you, drench you. You don't need to go anywhere to be found. In the looking, there's maybe a sense of duality, alienation, me looking for something, me looking for my breath, me looking for peace. But in being found, much of that melts away. There's no ground anymore for self-doubt. We're found. our freedom is found in the same place as our suffering. We don't have to go looking somewhere for a freedom. We rehearse our freedom in this moment. Embody freedom. So we let go of looking for something. so much forgiveness for the ways our mind forages, ways we look for peace, seek. So we just come back resting in what's already here, being found by stillness, being found by silence. Letting that heal the kind of fundamental alienation, always looking. Okay. Uh, so welcome, welcome. I honored to be with you, and um, yeah, from 2017, 2007 until 18, I had did a group weekly or bi-weekly in LA or San Francisco, and it's been 6 years, but some intuitive sense of it's time to start something up. And so here we are, and yeah, very happy to be with you. So teaching is it's a weird thing, you know. I still I still do find it kind of strange that anyone wants to listen to me. If no one wanted to listen, that would be very understandable. And I know you're going to say, like, no, Matthew, that's just the self-hate talking. I get it. But I don't think it's that. I actually don't think it's that. Um, it's because most of the time in my life, I feel like a kind of big, dumb, happy golden retriever, not a Dharma teacher. It's my spirit animal, the retriever. Really is. That's like kind of the baseline self view, and experience of myself. But the thing is, our mind is not our own. It constellates in very particular ways based on the totality of the conditions. Your mind is not your own. There's continuity, but then what gets drawn forth from conditions? A lot, right? And so who we are is partially reflected by who we are when we're with others, what others pull to the surface. It's not like the real self is the kind of retriever and this is like some performance. No, the Buddha emphasized friendship, spiritual friendship, associating with goodness. Because our mind is not our own, and something happens to my mind when I'm with Sangha, something happens to it. It's not a performance, something happens to it. And it becomes very easy to uh, to know love. It becomes very easy to sense the Dharma, like some uh, living presence between you and I. And it's there even, in chat. I can't see a face, but I'm, just the names. That's enough. That's enough. And so on the one hand, I don't feel very identified um, with the role of teacher, but a big part of how I actually know myself, know my heart, is from taking this seat. And so all of that maybe is a long-winded way of saying that I'm here for me, you know. But while I'm here, I kind of want to be useful. Yeah. And so, uh, and so we begin. As we begin, I've been thinking about pedagogy, how learning happens. How do we actually absorb the Dharma? How does it become sort of woven into our biology. And it's something, maybe pedagogy is something we Dharma teachers have been a bit incurious about, as sort of like inherited certain ways, certain pedagogical assumptions about how to transmit the Dharma. And I think there's incredible wisdom in that. But I wonder, okay, how do we actually learn? How does this thing go? So I was reading something about uh, lessons from cognitive science for learning, sort of what, gleaning some kind of core lessons for learning. And excuse me, the author said, people learn new material better when it creates impasses in their current mental models, contradictions, conflicts, anomalies, uncertainties, and ambiguities, which stimulate curiosity, inquiry, questioning, problem solving, and deep reasoning to restore cognitive equilibrium. Impasses in the current models. We're all trying to kind of stay balanced to keep our equilibrium, and we prefer knowing to not knowing. We prefer familiarity to uncertainty or shock. We really have routinized our mental life to a large degree, and for good reason, right? If I'm walking and I stumble, very, very quick impulse to get back, into balance, to reestablish balance, you know, before I even think, there's just aware, whatever body proprioception. It's like off balance. Okay, do my best to right myself. And that's it's a wholesome impulse. But our Dharma path is a kind of dialectic between equilibrium and disequilibrium, a little bit like, what I was saying about learning, creating impasses in the models. So if it's all upheaval, if it's all disequilibrium, nothing gets integrated. It's kind of chaos, right? Just trying to get some kind of footing, right? And on the other side, if it's all kind of like cruising altitude equilibrium, we sort of get the models become too comfortable, too familiar. Our Dharma understandings become stale in a way. And so the path is this kind of dialectic between equilibrium and disequilibrium, between kind of coziness and being thrown out of the nest. Pema Chodron said, like, to be truly alive is to be thrown out of the nest moment by moment, right? And so the path, the Dharma path, it feels like home and it feels like exile. It's so it's so wonderful to come home, Hopefully it feels like that, to come home and to feel the kind of coziness of home, And the Dharma is a lot like that. It's this kind of sense of like, I knew this, but I've forgotten. I'm returning. I'm remembering. I'm like, the heart is returning to its native ground. Okay, yeah. And that is that's a beautiful way. And so lots of people have talked about the path, a certain kind of homecoming. But we all know that spending all time maybe at home is not good. We venture out into the world to be startled, the startling quality when we feel kind of estranged from our prior models, our prior understandings, the staleness of what we took to be so, and that kind of sense of possibility and deep aliveness when you can kind of sense it, like the current model, the current mental model, the current frame, the current Dharma understanding starts to develop a little crack, right? And it's like part of us wants to like patch it up, right? And there's some fear there, it's like, whoa, wait a second, the kind of ordinary reference points, losing them. And then there's this incredible kind of openness too in that disequilibrium. And this can happen in a lot of ways when we look at the world, when we look at the enormity, just how deep the first noble truth, the Buddha's first noble truth of dukkha, just how deep that runs. When we look at the immensity of goodness and beauty, the the Buddha's grace, that disequilibrium can happen when we look into the eyes of another person, but don't look in that familiar way where they lie, a foot behind kind of the plexiglass of all the accumulated concepts we have. We just look at somebody, maybe into their eyes, maybe we just gaze at them, the kind of deep mystery of their being onsets. This disequilibrium happens when the kind of song of self that we've been humming incessantly stops. Scientist Judea Pearl said, you cannot answer a question that you cannot ask, and you cannot ask a question that you have no words for. So maybe part of what the Dharma is about is finding words, actually, words for new questions about ourself, our life, our debts to others, new questions about love and death and what consolation is possible given the ungraspability of all things, the unpossessibility of all things. What is possible? What consolation is possible? What kind of peace might be invented? So I look forward to our questions together, and to be changed by their articulation. So a deep bow to you all. Welcome, and see you next week. Okay.